Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question. That is to sort of talk about the feelings of grief. Covert narcissist manipulation tool or tactic. You don't see a manipulation. You don't see a tactic. You don't see a lack of empathy. You don't see pathological self-interest to the point where they're neglecting or downplaying, minimizing, or being very dismissive of other people, their presence, their eye contact, their need for communication, back and forth, airflow, and not from like another room, just always on the phone or otherwise remote circumstances. So the grief and sort of the shaming. So to talk about this, and before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently donated to the channel. I'm just going to use your initials DD up there in cold and chilly Canada. Great to hear from you. I'm so glad you found the channel, and I hope these videos do help. So thank you so much for your support and your comment. We definitely do appreciate it, and hope you have many great tools and discoveries that you're learning from us here. So let's get a little bit more into it. The covert narcissist tool of guilting, shaming. Guilt is sort of a feeling of a low-level burn, like a seething feeling that doesn't quite bring to the surface and allow for its bubbling forth, like communication, talking about things. Why this I want to do, that hurt, this isn't right, this is how I do, you're kind of like struggling for just communication, just a basic recognition. In the covert narcissist, they'll use guilt and shaming to sort of make null and void that pathway, that bond, that relationship causeway, if you will, where relationships are built and maintained. The covert narcissist will shame in a passive aggressive way, meaning not giving you the hello, not giving you the accolades, not giving you the credit, making you then feel less than because you're not able to obtain the validation with which you're seeking. So it requires this additional energy. But the energy, instead of it being focused on self-supportive of you, it generally becomes that is trying to remedy or rescue this apparent, very difficult to articulate tension, pain, generally an unhappiness, a malaise, a lack of energy, a deficit, poverty consciousness. We don't have, in other words, you're then relegated to the unimportant, ignoring, like my dentist said on his poster, ignore your teeth and they'll go away. So it's kind of like, they almost try to make you as if you're not even apparent, you're transparent. They just sort of move right through you. This is also creates a feeling of confusion because the person does not know how to identify the cause that's created this, because the ego doesn't want to stay in that pain. It wants to have an identity that it can then show to the world and have, a fluid life, so to speak, versus a private, which means the shame is usually then built on denial, denying of you, denying of your greatness, peace and harmony, I'm not that great. But denying of your presence. See, that very peace, that very acknowledgement, how can we really describe this? When someone acknowledges your presence with respect, hey, how are you today? How can I help you? Like they're not consumed with themselves or anything that's going on. They're not like, yeah, I'm so hungry. What can I help you with today? Yeah, I gotta go. What do you need? Yeah, I'm out of here. They're always sort of like looking at over the shoulder as if you're an inconvenience. What was that comedian? Steve Martin. Well, excuse me for a living. It's the old like Steve Martin. He reframed it to the positive, and he got like so many people laughing. It's like, excuse me for, the way that he said it. It was just so, he's very physical. He's comedic. It's his whole, he just really inhabits that space. And so to understand though, the danger, and I'm not trying to say that this is funny, make light, hey, ha, ha, he, he. We'll just laugh our way to healing and recovery. No, because these feelings of shame and guilt, meaning you should be ashamed. You shouldn't come out. You shouldn't speak. You shouldn't be. Okay, that becomes, even though, was it the intention? Are you oversensitive? What you must understand that the quantum field, your subconscious, takes it as an attack, as if they're criticizing it. The body then is trying to go into a fight or flight, which is that anxiety, panic-ridden paranoia state. Then really overworks because their identity is becoming, it doesn't ever resolve. If you're in a relationship with a covert narcissist, why do they use these tactics of sort of ignoring, cold shoulder, not looking? I mean, in other words, but you'll see that they definitely acknowledge and validate they have the ability to communicate and talk. You've seen them on the phone. You've seen them before talk, but somehow it appears that, it just doesn't happen. And this person just seems to float along, and they're in a very sort of detached state, which means they're not holding on to anything here. Maybe you could, for all you know, you could float off into the sunset, and would they ever notice or call or care? So this feeling creates a lot of anxiety. It creates a lot of self-doubt and basically directed acting in or acting out. In other words, to get that connection and to get that release and to get that letting go in the positive from that other person, it becomes like a focus, a life focus. But the problem is that it's then you're not ever able to experience a clearly defined boundary of yourself, because you must repeatedly then deny or violate or not acknowledge and recognize your own boundaries, which means there's a certain point where you must be able to live in peace. Peace is more powerful, and from where, your communication, your better communication, your better cooking, your better income, your better feelings are going to come from a feeling of peace and neutrality. This is not advertised on TV. This I'm okay state, couldn't sell all the hamburgers, all the cigarettes, all the beer, all the pop, all the whatever, because it's based on you're not okay. So why don't you do this or have this in order to then be okay. So it's like that type of lifestyle, which then oftentimes the covert narcissist, which they don't see, acknowledge, or validate, but oftentimes they are the perpetrator of this anxiety, but they're not doing anything that outwardly shows that there should be something anxiety based. So it becomes this real brainwashing, gaslighting, not knowing one's reality or what, like, a good reality. This is dangerous. Why? It can destroy a childhood. It can destroy a marriage. It can destroy a college experience. It can attempt to ruin your ability to focus. It can ruin and make very difficult your ability to inhabit a body that is comfortable. This becomes a foreign luxury, as if only once in a lifetime have you felt okay, and as if life is magical, exotic, or helping you along, at least along the way. You don't have to be a whole life of, I wish I could, I wish I could. You know, that little engine that could. What is that children's book? But, it becomes then a struggle then of definition, of identity, of I am. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, hearkening back to this understanding in psychology, which is known as neuroplasticity, your ability of the brain to be plastic, not fake, but meaning malleable, meaning ability to change, to be flexible, to adapt, to create new neural pathways that are there kind of instead of replacing or taking the place of the other non-supportive, non-energizing, non-validating, sort of the destructive. And people will relapse, go back almost like an alcoholic, if you haven't really nailed this down, if you really haven't gotten it or understand what it means to let go. No contact, meaning you're letting go. So the guilt and shame, oh boy, this is difficult to let go of, because it's almost like the fuel that is the fire. It becomes, the perpetrator oftentimes becomes the I am for a lot of people. They're not able to own, I am a journalist, and still be in a relationship with a covert narcissist. They're not able to focus. Like a viewer said, it sometimes mimics ADHD. But it's different than that, because I feel that it promulgates sort of a undergirding fear, which then results in these feelings of shame, which means you're missing or lacking something, or you should be intrinsically embarrassed. Like people who, I've had viewers who have, they have not been able to stop sweating. They are not able to stop blushing. They're not able to stop carrying around a mirror. They've got a whole suitcase, just to change their shoes, their makeup, their hair, their anything. They're just, because they feel that they're not put together, think something is not right. They're going to be shamed, pointed out. Their life is then going to fall apart like they're one of those little towers where you pull one little thing and then the whole thing goes down. Your life is then apart in pieces. Okay, sounds poetic. It can be very romantic. Oh, this, and you're romanticizing then being happy, being free of this shame. John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. Geez, just the title. Okay, bind, meaning, it's a binding, it's a contract, it's binding you down. It's like a pants might have a binder on it to put it together. Like it's a binding, like you're always in debt for some reason, you're feeling just based on some sort of emotional calculation, you're coming up with this whole thing, that you're having to sort of give and give more of yourself in order to clear the way or release the covert narcissist from what some people, I think, feel is their toxic shame, embarrassment, or whatever it is that causes them to not interact. So they simultaneously try to make their life, trying to solve their problem. In other words, their life, your energy is then focused on trying to solve their problem, make their life easier, cook them a better meal, make them a better bed, help them with their emotions and feelings, or just adapt to them, which can be very trying. You feel like you're always being tested. Gosh, we've gone through a lot in just 15 minutes. Okay, do you see why this is so very potent and important to understand? That's kind of like the enemy that you can't see, that's causing you harm, causing you to feel less than, or causing you to feel binded, causing you certain behaviors that you're not comfortable doing. I mean, and only you know what it is. Only you know really that feeling and how long it's been there. So the shame really becomes guilt then if you're trying to find a truth, or sort of separate, meaning find your existence simultaneously. You can't simultaneously have your hand in a pot of boiling water and say, I'm okay now. I've got my hand over here and it's in ice. I mean, your left hand can't be in boiling water and you put your right hand in ice and say, it's okay. I mean, you're going to have to get your hand, you're going to have to let go of that boiling pot of water, and you're going to just have to come to a comfortable degrees within. That's very difficult for people to do, understand, physically process, intellectually process, and get to, because it's in direct conflict with the truth that is required to stay in that same codependent, manipulated state. In other words, this feeling that's sort of mysterious that you couldn't let go of, that maybe you fixed them, you got a positive, and then you had to keep that going, but you suffered sort of that sort of jackpot mentality, meaning it happened once and I better really keep working hard to make sure I'm not with that feeling of shame again. In other words, to delay or portray, or to put out that feeling, then people will engage in other activities or behaviors. But it's a simultaneous self-denial, meaning you're not picking up or engaging in certain responsible acts because of this. There are certain connections. What does this mean? That you will relapse, meaning fall back, regress into feelings of, once things you begin to sort of get things like, I really need to take care of myself. I really need to forget about that. I really need to stop romanticizing that relationship. I need to stop keeping that sort of as part of my story in the way that I am. So people then will weave a certain story, if you will, and romanticize this person or their own. Romanticize meaning just sort of keep it going, but keeping stuck at the same time. And so when opportunities present themselves for you to step out, go somewhere, do, or have something that is stronger or freer, more liberated and empowered, and sort of not having to look over their shoulder. Am I okay? Are you okay with me doing da da da? There's always this sort of checking in. It's like you've got, some people say it's a monkey on your back. It's not really a monkey. it's kind of this person, this energy, this experience that is always sort of there. But so why don't you put it into a cute little soft squeaky dog or something else that's a little bit more cute and go, I got you, we're okay, and then really let go. Meaning letting go of maybe some of the traditions that are sort of keeping that alive. Meaning a lot of people hold on to dishes, hold on to mementos, letters, pictures, addresses, phone numbers. Okay, if you still have these and you still reference these, then it's really time to let go of and understand what it is to just don't hold on, meaning non-attachment, meaning I'm not holding that in my solar plexus, my am, because oftentimes without recognizing or realizing, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, if you've been in that mood, which was probably pretty intense, okay, you've been there and where they're sort of testing you, or that shame made you feel, I'm not in with my peers. I'm not in where I should be. I'm not appropriate for my grade level. I'm not appropriate for my age level. At this time in my life, I should have traveled. I should have had this. We should have. You're feeling you're sort of always in the gap. You're always living in the gap where you don't have. You're, subconsciously, you're keeping yourself in the I'm not, I don't have. And you're, because of that habituated state, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, if that intense feeling was repeated over several hours, several days, it's going to become a temperament, meaning, like when you have that, you can't get into your laptop, it might make you angry. But then if it keeps happening, then it keeps, and then you keep rehearsing and rememorizing that anger of not being able to get in, and so you've got that sort of and that's anger, frustration. Frustration is a big one that we're supposed to talk about. The frustration that is given, besides the guilt and the shame, there's a frustration, I feel, that prefaces it or preludes it, which means comes before. There's a certain anger which, is then self-directed, meaning I can't. And so it's just like, but then with, I can't get this. So it's that confusion of the narcissist, the covert narcissist. I can't really get through to them. They don't quite understand. I have to come back and prove it to them again. Or that frustration, meaning you're still caught up. You're that angry, I'm gonna sell this house, I'm gonna change this, it's fueled by this anger, this negativity. There's maybe, and that might diffuse itself. You might have a lot of this built up, but it's like, it's sort of it'll give you sort of a toxic result, if you will, because you're not able to see and own a certain reframed positive about you. There becomes a real blind spot. I think when we're talking about a covert narcissist, you kind of live in the blind spot, kind of like, under their stealth radar, but you kind of feel like because of this, you're given this invisibility cloak or this, sort of this reality that you can't quite get. It's going to always be outside of your reach, meaning you keep trying, meaning the temperament sort of becomes one of frustration and lack of fulfillment. And the I'm not. So that becomes a tension. And I can't succeed. I can't focus. And then that puts you on, sort of a negative grid where if something happens, then all of a sudden, you're not acting in your uncouth behavior, and or you're just not being able to then take that very grid space and have yourself inhabit it in a way that makes you feel whole and complete, and that you're not going to lose it. The covert narcissist relationship becomes predicated based on a sort of a transaction then, meaning you're always looking and you're always not fulfilled, but then you can alleviate that feeling then by giving them, or there's some sort of validating that people then have to do, and always give them a win or always give themselves a loss. In other words, they're not able to be comfortable with their own gains. Literally, so you'll see, eating disorders, anorexia, not comfortable with their own gains, not comfortable with their own flesh, not comfortable with intimacy, not comfortable with their own. You can have male anorexics. They're not comfortable with their own virility, strength, or maybe their own body as a man. They might feel slight, and they haven't been able to carry that well. They might not have been able to carry their height. They're always, they're always trying to make themselves smaller. I mean, they're, are sort of always, trying to inhabit less space, living in a small house, a tiny car, a tiny job, a tiny paycheck. Okay, you can't even pick up a positive identity with the tweezers. You ain't got none, and you got none to tweeze out from the fibers of your being, meaning you're sort of displaced, meaning you feel lost. And then the problem, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, excuse me, this is water in a glass, in a wine glass, super nice, good, delicious cold water this time of year. And so the problem, though, exists in, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, is that with that repetition of frustration, confusion, self-doubt, that whole negative bucket, I mean, it becomes your closet. I mean, it becomes your foodstuffs. It becomes your car. It becomes your profession. It becomes your identity, your I am, meaning I am not without this. Meaning you're, like the smoker. Like they can't do they're sleeping smoking, they're driving, they always see themselves as a smoker, alcoholic, same thing. Always see themselves with a drink, they can't ever have an identity of themselves without such. They don't feel that they inhabit that body. So that is denial. That is not being able to remember anything. Names, dates, mental fog, brain fog, stemming from denial. I am not. I don't need. Is this sort of other space, ultra reality. But then people want to burst that bubble and go, I really want to understand a little bit more. I don't like this feeling of guilt or shame, which is really a frustration, means a separation from your goals, or you're analyzing this such that where you're at does not meet where you think or feel you should be. So that identity then, if you have to understand within yourself, how long have you then been trying to fix them in order to fix yourself, help them in order to help yourself, which means it's like if they're cold, if you're cold, you're going to get them a jacket. Like you feel better. taking care of them, helping them succeed, helping them with their needs, helping them look good, rather than having something of your own as well. It's very difficult because, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, and I think there's a lot of interesting feedback from that, because that mood repeated over time becomes a temperament, and then temperament repeated over time becomes like a trait, and then that trait repeated over time becomes your personality, and then that personality over time becomes your identity, and then that identity over time becomes your lifetime. It becomes your life. And it's kind of like you got to get your head out of the suitcase and look on to the next chapter and see it to be a little bit more with freedom, joy, being. You don't have to do, okay? There is a skill to just saying, okay, I already have. And without feeling guilty, the guilt will be oftentimes a driver for a lot of people. I know that when I was in college, I just always had this sort of, sensitivity, or, like, I hurt for other people who have hurt. It's, I've had that sensitivity, I would say, for a long time. Why is it? You can look at Dr. Joe Dispenza. You don't have to, though, so for our viewers who say, why do I then repeatedly stay in this, i.e. mold, i.e. design blueprint, why do I keep then attracting people who take advantage, who don't commit, who are only there for this, that, or the other thing, or I just feel used, abused, or I don't want it to be this way, and I keep sort of giving up, letting go, giving in, and I gave in again. Eventually, you're going to go, man, I've let too much go. I've let out too much slack. I've let too much heat out of the building. I've given away too much of myself, my power, my being. Ooh, what does that mean? A lot of people think they're only the machinery. They're only the arm, the shoulder to cry on, the listening ear. What we're discovering is that you're a human being, which means you must eventually realize that you're going to inhabit a B state, which is bigger and more powerful and stronger than the abuser, than the abuse, than the victimizer, than being a victim. Meaning, why are you still wearing the victim hat? As I spill over my water, why are you still wearing the victim hat? Well, maybe you didn't know you were wearing it. Take a look around at your place, your car, your countertops, your medicine cabinet, your physical feeling within. Is it feeling shut down, depressed, or have you realized that you need to get some rest, some sleep, rather than aggravating, agonizing, figuring out, or worrying? Again, one of my great friends who said he felt that worrying was one of the most futile, which means like worthless, he said like things to do, but it's like, I would say, ways of being. Eventually, you want to let go or shed that off. You might need to wiggle it off like a snake. You're going to shred that last bit, a little bit off. You're going, man, peace and harmony. You're right. I do carry around this sort of living, breathing wound within me. That if you must understand in psychology that makes for what we call victimize, victimizer, victimized. I am a victim. So if you have if this has gone on for years, and I know we have a viewer question, we have several viewer questions coming in, not only about like this when it comes to the abuse, but we're doing, we have a lot of video topics sort of coming up, but I wanted to look at this one because that guilt is oftentimes the driver of a lot of behaviors that aren't beneficial or good for you. The guilt, in other words, I can't go out and move because da da da. I can't go out and live my life because I can't be strong and have everything be okay because I can't say that this looks good or is good because I can't give credit to myself and just say, okay, that's a good thing done. You can't, that was learned. What I want to encourage and emphasize that I really feel firmly in what I'm believing as Complex PTSD, Pete Walker book, From Surviving to Thriving. Oh boy, who knows about survival, meaning just being able to make it through or being able to feel that you are thriving, feeling guilty, not knowing, I don't know how, it is one of the topics. And we're gonna, embark on those, which means we're going forward. There's a momentum. There's a wind, i.e. this requires your breathing, your focus, okay? Meaning you got to get the understanding that the healing is going to come from a new temperament, a new mood repeated over time, okay? Which is based on neutrality, which is based on non-assigning of good, bad, ugly. Just allow it to cease, okay? In specific, not just like, oh, that's a good lamp, that's a bad lamp, but like in a similar way, but according to what's sort of always routinely processing within your subconscious, because that is where you're still going, I'm a victim, and then you find yourself relapsing to those feelings. And instead of saying, no, I don't think so, I'm going to report you for trying to, they're trying to come in your house. Oh, please just, it's the holidays. Oh, please just, can I come in the bed? Can I sleep on the couch? You know what I'm saying? Or they try to, why don't you just, and then they're violating your boundaries. And then you are violating your own boundaries. It's just like the switch is down. The arm wrestle, you lost it, okay? And you go, man, I really know what to do, but I didn't do it. Those are the 3-second, 5-second situations that you want to go right in there. You go, okay, these 5 seconds, excuse me, I'm sorry, no. When have you been assertive? Someone's trying to, assertive. I'm sorry, no. You're afraid of what's going to happen. Guilt and anxiety, shame. You're saying no without feeling guilty. You're saying no without being ashamed. You're saying yes without being guilty, and you're saying yes without being ashamed. These are things you're going to have to repeat, rehearse, and memorize, especially in the physical body. And this is going to require getting, and feeling, and understanding what the shame will do in terms of really its destructive ways, and understanding then that you can let go of that feeling from your repertoire, which means your choreography of your life, your identity, your I am. You're going to step out And what does that mean? Does it mean disappointment? Does it mean disapproval? Does it mean that you're independent? Does it mean that you're okay? Does it mean that this is going to keep going and it's going to get better, easier, or you're going to discover something? Give it a try. Start saying yes to start saying yes to saying no. In other words, where does the guilt and the shame, what does it cause? What is it causing you to feel, do, be, have, and become that is not becoming to you? Michelle Obama, the book, Becoming. Okay? I mean, this does not have to be a race. Wherever you are, it's okay. Do not worry about it. Rehearse and realize that there's other B states that you need to witness within yourself. And I really feel that it's that self-witnessing, that self-talk, which is like a new language. It's a new code. Oh my gosh, peace and harmony. I feel like I'm a kindergartner. Great, you feel like an innocent child. That's what and where you are. Wipe the slate clean. It's okay to say, you know what, those feelings, I can kind of grow from or away from them, which means you can get some space. How many people do not know what it is to have some space? Okay, they've never known what it is to hold their head high. They have not known what it is to have people behind them. They do not know what it is to be complimented. They do not know what it is to have a raise or a promotion. They do not know what it is to be the big boy or the big sister. They don't know what it is to be looked at with respect, with credibility, or with answers. In other words, your identity hasn't then gone and preceded itself with that new becoming. It can be just a little teeny. Okay, this is okay. But with on the regular, on the daily, setting and enforcing boundaries. Did you set a boundary with her? Did you set a boundary with them? Did you set a boundary within? Did you finally stop overeating? Did you finally stop over drugging? Did you finally stop over feeling? Okay? Did you finally leave the house and not have a panic? Did you finally say, no, I don't have to have all that, okay, which is not for me, because oftentimes people fill their life and their lifestyle with trying to get approval and impress the very people that they cannot, or it does not work. In other words, as I've said, you find yourself crawling up the wrong tree. You getting crab apples, you're getting something, you're not getting the rhubarb or whatever it is you were kind of going for. Things have gotten out of hand. It's okay to change directions, trajectory, being able to reduce that hypervigilance and getting a new percussiveness to you, okay, that isn't based on some sort of other yardstick, measuring stick that is outside of you, but instead you've been able to harness something within. It could be, a little tiny harness, or you find, oh my gosh, I'm finally understanding I have a little bit of space. I call it's kind of like your internal real estate. You've got some prime, your B state, I'm really understanding, is really one of the more important and powerful places for you to inhabit within, which means being, which can be scary for a lot of people who have had child abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, chronic criticism, slugs in the mouth, slugs in the gut, slugs in the ear, head thrown out. A lot of people have had and really have to say what was violent, traumatizing, traumatic, and then understand the cause that's then created the effect. Okay, because that can be long term. So that that can be more overt, but there can be sort of the covert, which is the passive aggressive, which means there's something that they're withholding, which is more of a neglect. People can suffer neglect, leaving you behind, leaving you out, leaving you unconnected, causing you to feel and then overdue. So realize that there's a repertoire of emotion that from which springs forth behaviors, and then self-referencing behaviors, self-referencing feelings, self-referencing thoughts. So oftentimes those are on a very negative grid. In other words, it's like a movie from 1800s that's still playing. You feel powerless. So, and you have to realize, is it okay to let go of what could be multi-generational, or maybe you do not have a role model, which is making this easy for you. So you might need to use a little bit of tools and say, it's okay, I need a role model or someone who can help me practice, be, do, and behave the new I am, that is not underlined with victim as your middle name. This is your buddy, peace and harmony with you here today. And I hope these videos do help. Realize the strength of the environment within and the environment without, and how that can simultaneously be adjusted to be more graceful, more fluid, more fluent, sort of more of which you are supposed to have, be, do, and become, but you were separated from for who knows how long. It could have started with a marriage. It could have started with a teenage romance. It could have started with a parent, okay? So if that's the event, this could be lifelong, okay? So, you're a lot, this energetic field, the etheric I am, is bigger, stronger than the abuser, okay? It can take them down, okay? It can really help you to ascend, alchemize, and reframe, which means getting a new reference, a new ticket to the football game. Are you always in, what ticket are you getting for yourself? I'm not getting any ticket, peace and harmony. Well, that might tell you something about change of perspective. We talk about this a lot in our videos. I'm going to wrap this one up though, and I hope this video does help. Please share, please subscribe. For goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a beautiful, strong, focused, and productive I am.